From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Kristen Amiot. It's Friday, December 20. Members of Victoria's Liberal Party will decide today if ousted MP Moira Deeming should be readmitted after she successfully sued party leader John Pesutto for defamation. It comes after a federal court judge ruled he's liable for Moira Deeming's hefty legal costs. A ninth person has accused Olympic pole vault coach Alex Parnov of grooming and sexually assaulting her as a teenager. Taryn Neville says she later took on a role as Parnov's assistant coach, hoping she could protect the other young female athletes in his squad. Climate Change Minister Chris Bowen says the coalition's nuclear ambitions will cripple Australia's solar grid and force big industries out of the country. You can read those exclusive stories right now at theaustralian.com.au. The government is plotting a revolution in early childhood education, and our education editor thinks the PM has more up his sleeve for families struggling under a cost of living crisis. That's today's episode. If you're a little kid in Australia, this is one of the most exciting times of the year. The days are long and warm, perfect for playing outside before dinner. The anticipation of summer holidays and Santa's arrival is electric. And the new year brings the promise and excitement of a new grade or even the jump to big school. All across the country, parents are packing up gifts and trinkets for the teachers and early childhood educators who've shepherded their kids through another big year. Some are topped with lovingly crafted cards made by the kids themselves.
It is just one of the most heartwarming jobs you can do.
Natasha Beta is The Australian's education editor.
And the children react so beautifully. I'm sure a lot of early childhood educators are having a very heartwarming time getting all their cards and notes from little kids at this time of the year. But it's something where we need to encourage more people to go into it and see it as a really valued career, because it's not babysitting at all.
Earlier this year, the government announced early childhood educators would be getting a pay rise. They're the people who look after kids in daycare centres before they reach school age. And they're one of the lowest paid workforces in the country.
The Prime Minister and his ministers were armed with $3.6 billion to fund a bumper pay rise.
So that will give them, about $150 a week extra income. That is important because the problem the sector has had is it's been competing against the fast food sector or the retail sector. And even though early childhood education is such an important and can be a very rewarding job, it is also an exhausting job. You cannot switch off. You can't wander off and have a cup of tea and turn your back because the moment you do, something might go wrong. That is the problem, is that early childhood education is only good for children if it is of high quality. Now, high quality doesn't mean, look at the beautiful facilities and the fun playground and they do yoga classes. That is not quality early childhood education. The quality comes down to the calibre of the people who are caring for children. You've got to be switched on the whole time. So that we really do need to get more people into this sector. And too many of them are leaving because they're just so burnt out and exhausted. They don't feel appreciated and they can't afford it. With the cost of living, it's a vicious cycle where they just can't afford to be looking after other people's children when they can't afford to pay their own rent.
Last week, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese unveiled the next phase of Labor's vision for early childhood education at a rally-style event in Brisbane.
Making childcare more affordable is good for families, and it's good for the economy. But all of us know there's more to it. There are more than 1 million reasons to invest in early education, some of whom are here with us here today, one of them riding a dinosaur down there. Because early education makes the biggest difference for our littlest Australians.
The government will scrap an activity test that requires parents and carers to work or study if they want to access childcare benefits. It'll also give families earning a combined annual income of less than $530,000 access to 3 days per week of government subsidised childcare if it wins the next election. And then there are the plans to build 160 childcare centres around the country.
Look, I think it's transformational because for the first time it puts the children at the centre of policy making. Childcare is no longer a convenience for working parents. It is a service for children. And that's quite different to the way it's been treated for the past few decades. And I think it will be very beneficial to children.
Experts agree that the first 5 years of a child's life are vitally important to their mental, physical and emotional development. And while early childhood education isn't just about giving kids the jump on their ABCs, Education Minister Jason Clare says it puts little kids in the best possible stead for the future.
Really, it's about making sure that every child in Australia gets the best possible start in life. We know that if a child goes to early education, then they're more likely to start school ready to learn. We also know that they're more likely to end up finishing high school. So this is about making sure that we build a better and a fairer early education system.
Look, I've heard from teachers saying that they get children arriving at school at the age of 4 or 5 who are still not toilet trained, let alone some children have never seen a book. They don't even know which way to hold it. They'll hold it upside down. So there are always children who come from homes where they don't have educated parents or they don't have books. There might be very grinding poverty. There might be drug or alcohol abuse. For whatever reason, they are behind. So the evidence is there that they're all starting school at different levels. And children who've attended preschool in particular, or kindy, depending which state or territory you're in, the year before school, have a great advantage over kids who have never learned to cooperate or to sit still in class, to listen, to take their turn. That's where you get a lot of behavioural problems as well.
Coming up, why Labor's early learning overhaul has been a long time coming. In the run-up to the 2007 federal election, former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd pledged to build 260 childcare centres across Australia. It would, he said, end the nightmarish double drop-off for parents, referring to the daily game of Tetris some parents play when ferrying kids of different ages to school and daycare, which can be kilometres or even suburbs apart.
What do we mean by an education revolution? A $500 million investment in early childhood education to enable all 4-year-olds across this country for 15 hours a week for 40 weeks a year to be exposed to pre-literacy and pre-numeracy education before they hit the school system. A great Labor initiative.
But by the middle of Rudd's term as PM, the plan had been unceremoniously dumped. Now, the Rudd-era infrastructure plan has been partially revived by Labor as part of its multi-billion-dollar early childhood education overhaul.
This is the single biggest investment by an Australian government ever in new childcare services, starting with building or expanding over 160 early education and care centres where they are needed most.
So, is it the right move? Here's Natasha Beta.
Look, I think the only option is to start building centres in areas where the private sector doesn't see it as profitable or the not-for-profit sector can't afford it. 17 years ago it was promised. If they had done it then, we wouldn't be having to do it now. It seems very expensive, $1 billion. I worked out that's $6.2 million per centre. To me, the most sensible thing would be for state and territory governments to build childcare centres on school grounds. And I know that some states, they are already integrating them when they build a new school. A lot of private schools are doing this because it's very profitable for them, because parents think it's great, one drop off. So it's a pity it was never done all that time ago. Probably would have been a lot cheaper than trying to do it now. But we can't have these childcare deserts where children in certain areas just don't even have a choice, or the waiting lists are so long that they can never attend.
Natasha says the Albanese government solution isn't perfect, but it's been a long time coming. And if they play it right, it could make a world of difference for the party in the run-up to the next election.
Childcare policy is a complete mess in this country because it's driven by a private sector, and they all want to build in particular areas where they think they can charge the most money. You end up with gluts in certain areas, and then other areas there's no childcare centre provided. So it's a pity it was never part of a government system in the first place, and it's just had all these changes tacked onto it as time goes by. So it's an incredibly confusing system for parents. I predict that the government will be making more announcements during the election campaign proper, because the Productivity Commission had recommended that every child get free childcare if their parents or the family earns less than $80,000 a year. I was surprised that the Prime Minister did not announce this, but I'd say they're keeping that up their sleeve because, as I said, if you're trying to target the benefits of early childhood education to very vulnerable and disadvantaged families, you must make it free.
Natasha Beta is the Australian's education editor. You can read all her reporting and analysis on the education sector right now at theaustralian.com.au. Thanks for joining us on The Front this week. Our team is Claire Harvey, Jasper Leake, Leah Samaglu, Tiffany Dimmack, Josh Burton, Stephanie Coombs and me, Kristen Amiot.